It's December 26th, 2015, and you're listening to the Session 3 report card of The Road to Japan. Konnichiwa. Minasan, genki desu ka? Welcome once again, everyone, to another episode of The Road to Japan. My name is Nico. I will be your host as usual. So, right off the top, I'm going to mention that this is actually take 2 of this episode because I actually recorded this last night, and I wanted to try and do something a little different, while also still kind of the same. Basically, I tried recording an episode from my kitchen again, and, you know, I mean, I was kind of satisfied with how the episode turned out, as far as the content was concerned. It did get a little bit rambly there, but unfortunately, when I went to start listening to the audio for editing, there were just points of it that for some reason cut out, and I think that was because the settings I had on my recorder were not set for the different microphone. I use a different microphone when I record in my kitchen, just so it picks up my voice a little bit better than the one I use that I'm using right now. But I did not adjust the settings accordingly, so I think what happened is the mic actually was picking up too much, and it does what we call clipping, which is basically when when you turn your speakers up too loud and you kind of get that staticky noise along with whatever you're listening to. That's basically what clipping is. And I think I actually clipped too much to the point where it just did not record the audio at all. That's just a educated guess. I'm really not that knowledgeable with sound or, audio engineering for that matter. So my limited knowledge is just taking kind of a stab in the dark there as to what happened. But basically, as a result, because I didn't want to, submit an episode with a bunch of gaps and whatnot, I unfortunately had to scrap it. So here we are, recording yet again. So you heard the date correctly. It is the 26th of December, so yesterday was Christmas. I essentially enjoyed the day off. Usually I do my holiday stuff on Christmas Eve, where I usually will spend it at with a friend and his family, which is always fun. I always have a good time. But Christmas Day is usually the day I kind of just hang out at home, And honestly, I mean, as you may have noticed, I haven't really put out a lot of episodes this semester, and that's because I was essentially just ridiculously busy. I was so freaking busy, but I will get into that later in the episode. So just a couple things off the top here. I honestly don't remember where exactly I left off with the last episode. I think I recorded that before Thanksgiving. So a lot has happened, obviously, since, about a month and a half ago at this point. I think I mentioned at least that I was in the process of becoming a member of Phi Theta Kappa. That has since, gone through. I went to a ceremony for my induction, as well as, other inductions of other members. They also had inductees for the National Technical Honor Society, which is essentially the same thing as Phi Theta Kappa, but it's only for technical degree holders. So there were a few of those people, but I think it was almost 2-to-1 ratio for Phi Theta Kappa members. But a lot of those technical honor inductees were also becoming part of Phi Theta Kappa as well. So some people got basically a double whammy, while some of us, like myself, just got the Phi Theta Kappa membership. But it was great. It was really a really awesome ceremony. I got a cool certificate that I put up on my wall, and I now have a little. It's like I'm not sure what you would call it. I think I equate it kind of like a little medallion. But I wear it on a chain around my neck, and I basically very rarely take it off at this point. This whole thing with becoming part of Phi Theta Kappa was, I don't know, I guess, definitely at the ceremony, it was a bit of an emotional experience for me, just because, like, it was one of the first times that I was able to see really just what a lot of my hard work was amounting to. Before it was just essentially grades on a report card, but like now it's like I'm adding something beyond just a really good GPA. So, I was a bit swollen with pride that evening. And I don't know. It's I still consider it to be just one of the many things that lie ahead for me. But it's going to be cool to, have that included on my future resumes, when I go to apply to this or that. It'll be great. And I hope that more students in the future will see the fruits of their labor in joining an organization like Phi Theta Kappa. I know I definitely appreciate being a member. So at this point, I'm a member. It's like I think it's a lifetime membership, in that, there's obviously no annual fees or anything like that I have to pay. But what I'm curious about, not that I'm really looking to test this, but what I'm curious about is if my GPA were just to drop all of a sudden, if I would still retain my PTK credentials, because one of the requirements is to have a 3.5 GPA. So I wonder if like my GPA were to drop, if that would, cause issues with my membership. But like I said, I'm not really looking to really test that, but I don't know. So that's something I'm curious about more so. But moving along, one other thing that has happened on or around Thanksgiving, I can't remember exactly now, but I was able to pay off my car, which was, obviously very awesome and cool. What I basically did is I took out an additional $3,000 on my school loans, and used that money to pay off my car, my auto loan. Now I realize that I'm using essentially loan money to pay off other loans, but the main reason for this is because this kind of consolidates my loans. So, when it comes time to manage any loans that I have in the future, I want to make sure that it's basically just my credit card and my school loan. So that way it'll obviously make things a bit easier to oversee, as opposed to having the school loan, credit card, and an auto loan on top of that, and any other line of credit I may establish along the way. I'm not really planning on it, but you never know. So the other main reason that I paid off my car, and this is probably the bigger reason, is because probably sometime in the next few months, my plan is actually going to be to trade it in towards a different vehicle, mainly because I don't know if I mentioned this, but I drive a Volvo, and it's a Volvo with a turbo in it. which sounds nice, but the thing is that, I mean, everything on this car has a premium price tag. That includes gas, that includes repairs, that includes even regular maintenance. I mean, everything has a higher price because, this is that type of car. So my goal is going to be to, I suppose in some people's eyes, maybe downgrade a little bit. But I've never had any problems with any of the Hondas that I've owned in the past. So that's what I'm going to be looking for. Like the original sticker price on the Volvo when I bought it was somewhere around like $8,500, I think, somewhere around there. And I really don't want to even think about how much I've actually paid because I know it's way more than that. Maybe even close to double. I'm not sure. But either way, I'm wanting to get out of this car and probably look for something a bit cheaper. I'm probably going to look more into the $3,000 to $4,000 range so that if I do end up getting an auto loan, it'll still be easily manageable and something I can hopefully still pay off before I finish school, because that would be the ultimate goal. But that'll have to be a wait and see, obviously for the next semester, because that's around the time it'll happen. I will likely wait until I have my tax return in my hand, because I'll probably use that at the very least as at least some of it as towards like a down payment to put towards the next car I get. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm still going to look for something nice, not some rundown beater or whatever, but it might be a step down from the Volvo, because the Volvo does have like a lot of the bells and whistles that you might like in a, I don't know, mid luxury car. I don't even know what you would call it. But I mean, it has like, heated seats, power windows, that kind of stuff. So, it's whatever. I'm more interested in a car that I can afford to maintain and, when the need arises, take care of repairs and not have it essentially break my wallet, really. But enough about that. Moving on. The next big thing I want to talk about is the fact that I want to say I mentioned on the last episode, I can't remember for certain because it was so friggin' long ago. But I think on the last episode, I mentioned that I was kind of having issues with my supervisor at work, essentially regarding me doing homework on the job. And I don't know how far along the story I got, but essentially what happened is he had caught me twice doing homework while my machine was running. It's not like I was doing it instead of doing something else I was supposed to be doing. I was literally just waiting for my machine to run, and I was just, in my mind, still staying productive. But he, came up and said, this isn't the place for that, blah, 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 basically kind of beating his chest, doing this alpha male nonsense. And the second time that he saw me doing homework, he came up, he said, that's two. If there's a third, then you, me, and the HR manager are going to have a conversation about this. So I decided that I was just going to go talk to the HR manager myself, without him. So I did that. I had a quick little meeting with her, and basically asked her, what the policy was, essentially asking her what I would expect, in terms of, I guess, punishment, if I was caught again, and basically explain the situation that, it was going to eventually be a meeting with the three of us and blah, blah, blah. Surprisingly, her response was, I don't know. That's what she told me. I don't know what the policy is. I don't know what we should or would do in this situation. So she actually had to figure that out herself. So what that meant was that she essentially put the meeting on hold while she gathered information. And I think like less than a week later, she called me back into her office. And I guess what happened is she brought it up during one of the many production meetings that they they have throughout the day, where it's essentially all the big wigs and managers and things like that, where they will discuss, any pressing matters having to do with the shop and production and so on and so forth. So when she brought it up, she obviously explained that the same things that I explained to her, which is the fact that, my workload, my production, all of that wasn't really suffering. And that's mainly the only reason I even thought it was justified to be able to do something like this. Obviously, if, my work was terrible, if I was having, to get talked to by my supervisor a lot as far as, the quality of my work suffering or something along those lines, then yeah, of course I would not consider it appropriate to be doing other things, since it's clear I should be obviously focusing more on my work. And she agreed with that. She agreed that, my work wasn't really in the crapper. So, that was ultimately the decision they came to, which was that, as long as my work still looked positive, the numbers that they would see every day, if that all looked good for them, then they didn't really have a problem. It essentially was, if I made sure to keep putting my work first, then it was okay, which is essentially all that I wanted. I wasn't trying to make it so that I'm doing my homework instead of, the work that my job requires of me. That would be silly. So, everything was settled. The thing was, though, is that my supervisor did not learn about this until after everything was said and done. So he obviously wasn't really happy about it. He basically figured I went over his head and everything as far as, not following the chain of command, which I think to him just meant, this should have stopped with me saying no and that be that. Although I'm not really sure what that would have meant, if we ended up having to, talk with the HR manager again anyway. I would have figured that this chain of events would have still occurred, just occurred a little differently. But I mean, one of the big reasons that I did not, kind of went about things the way I did is because our plant manager, who is essentially my supervisor's boss, is really, really chummy with him. So, I mean, these guys went to high school together, and they've been working together at the same place for at least 15 years, if not longer. So, I mean, they obviously, are pretty tight. So for me to say, go follow the chain of command, basically go above my supervisor, since it wasn't working on that level, and go to his boss, it still would have ended up probably with my supervisor just saying, he needs to not do that. He needs to listen to me. End of story. And the plant manager would have probably just been like, oh, okay, whatever. So I wanted to make sure to bring, other parties into this, and especially impartial ones, people that didn't necessarily want to essentially take a side one way or the other. I just wanted to present my case and have it, looked at in a fair manner, which ultimately happened. And I mean, understand that, my expectations really were that this was not going to go in my favor. I figured that they were still going to side with my supervisor on this and say, yeah, the workplace is not the place to be doing homework, blah, blah, blah. Job is numero uno. But surprisingly, they said it was okay. They obviously laid stipulations, as far as making sure that I, again, put my job first, which I'm totally okay with. The ironic thing about all this is that once everything blew over and, everyone kind of got over it, the need to do homework on the job pretty much diminished for me. Like any homework that I was doing, I finished and got caught up with. So then the need to bring my homework to my job, was non-existent. It's a funny way to look at the whole situation, summed up and all that. But it's still nice to have that in my back pocket because obviously, this semester's done, but I still have several semesters ahead of me before I'm done with school and moving on to, whatever lies ahead for me. So, it'll be good. It'll be good to have that available. And, if anything, when I need to do homework on the job in the future, I'll have even more time at the company to show that there's not really anything they need to be concerned with. Basically prove that they can trust me to handle things, essentially. So, I just wanted to, mention that and just say that, that's one little battle I won. And I think, I kind of feel in a way that college has helped me with that situation, because if I was in like my old state of mind, before going to college, I would have just said, well, this is not fair. And that's it. That's where I would have left it. But I think college has allowed me to better prepare an argument, and better persuade people to kind of see things from my perspective. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily the case. That's just kind of one way that I'm looking at it. But anyway, that's enough of that. So moving along, obviously this is the session 3 report card. So that means that there are grades to discuss. So the semester wrapped up probably, where are we? We're at Christmas. So that means the semester wrapped up probably about a week and a half ago, roughly. And, there's not a ton to report necessarily, except that I got all A's in my class. So I am definitely proud of that. But moreover, I also earned honors credit in all my classes. So I think I mentioned that I either was in the process of or had just started these honor projects with all of my classes. So what that means is essentially I finished all those projects and earned credit for all of them as well. I still have yet to see anything show up on my transcript that's different from my standard grades, because all my grades have been turned in, but I think the honors credit is submitted differently. I'm really not sure. But then again, I think the way that I'm looking at my grades is not the same as, if I were pulling up an actual transcript. So I don't know. Maybe they just don't put it on the web client that we use. But I assume if I were to, say, get a transcript, then I would see the honors credit on there somewhere. But let's see. What do I want to mention? So, like with my math class, one of the reasons that I ended up not needing to bring that homework to the job, because that was primarily what I was doing. I was bringing my math homework in to work on while the machine was running. And what I came to discover throughout the course of the class was that my instructor was okay with us using pretty much any type of calculator that we came across. Not just, the scientific calculator that we might have in our backpacks. He showed us actually a few that worked really well for helping us with a lot of our work. And I asked him a number of times throughout the semester, making sure that he was okay with me using these for my work, for my tests, that kind of stuff. And he had no problem with it, which is kind of surprising that I didn't see a lot of other students taking advantage of that. Because it essentially made my life a hell of a lot easier, really. So once I started using the calculators, it was enabling me to get my homework done a lot faster. And also towards the end of the semester, we started getting more tests that were take home because we essentially were starting to run out of time. So he would essentially go through like the lectures during class, and then after I think 2 or 3 classes, then he'd send us home with with a test to do. I'm pretty like I remember he sent us a test home like over the Thanksgiving break. And I mean, I know that sounds kind of lame, like, oh, a test over a holiday and so forth. But I mean, honestly, when I was doing it with my, with these calculators and stuff, it didn't take me very long to do these tests. And I still ended up getting really good grades, either 95 or above. So I guess it's, however you want to look at it. I prefer, the fact that he allowed us to go about it this way, because hopefully, if I'm lucky, this will be the last math class that I need to take, at least, until the completion of my bachelor's degree. Now, I can't say that will necessarily be the case. That's just what I'm hoping, because if I am looking at the correct information, my bachelor's does not require anything above the math prerequisites that this class would fulfill. Now, obviously, if I were to go on further, like with a master's or a PhD, then they probably would require some more math to be involved with that. And, I'll tackle it when I get there. But, if I'm lucky, at least for the bachelor's degree, this will be all I need to do. So, and then with the honors project on the math class, it was essentially just some extra busy work, really. It was some group activities out of the book, and he just said, just do these, on your own or with a group if you want. I mean, like I said, it was just busy work, I'm honestly not even sure he really looked at it when I turned it in. So, I don't know. Take it how you like. But I'm glad that was the course of action that was taken to get honors credit for that class. And so going into like my other classes, the two economics courses, as I had said at the beginning of the session, was probably the easiest opportunity to get an A. And I accomplished that. It was basically I just made sure to watch my grade like a hawk, throughout the semester, and make sure that I was on track to get that point total. And I mean, usually in that class, I end up not only achieving the point total, but typically end up exceeding it. I think this time I exceeded it by anywhere from 40 to 50 points per class. So, if there was like an A++, I probably would have gotten something like that. But, it just stop at an A. But essentially, like I like the fact that I can watch this so closely and keep track of it, so that when I reach, those last couple weeks of the semester, I can then more finely tune, the number crunching that I'll need to do. And essentially, I got it to a point where all I had to do was just show up to class. Because as I think I mentioned, we receive a favor token at the beginning. And we can turn that back in if we have perfect attendance, and then we get an additional 25 points. It's essentially free points just for making sure you're in class on time. You don't even necessarily have to do anything. You just show up. So, I got my point total to the point where all I had to do was just keep showing up on time, and voila, I had free points. But there were other activities that we were doing, those last couple of weeks that also earned us points, and we were still doing quizzes and so forth. So, I mean, the last few weeks were a breeze for me in terms of my economics classes. Now, the majority of my work the last few weeks of the semester primarily came from my English class, namely because I had two major projects going on in that class. One of which was just part of the regular syllabus coursework, in which we write a lengthy research paper. What's nice, though, is that she lets us expand upon previous writings that we've done if we see, fit to do so. So I was able just to continue expanding upon the paper I had written before, and just had to add more to it, and it turned out that she liked the paper enough that she actually wants to use it as as like an example for her class next semester. Because, and I don't know if she rotates or what have you, but at least for us, when she was presenting the paper to us, she gave us a student sample. She does remove the name, so it's not like we know who wrote the paper, but essentially she shows us what an example of an A paper looks like. And I was flattered when she said that she wanted to use mine next semester as one of the samples. So that, put just a little more pressure on me to make sure, because, I want, even though they don't know that it was written by me, I still want to, have that, I don't know, that little extra polish on it, just to know that, a student in her class can really write some great stuff. So I worked on it a little hard, a little bit more than I probably would have otherwise. And pretty much had the grade, my A in the class locked down. I mean, I could have literally gotten a 0 on that final draft, and I still would have gotten an A in the class. So, it was more making sure that was a prime example for her to present to her students next semester. And the honors project was the really big project that probably took up the most of my time in the last month, was working on this creative short story that I wrote for my English honors credit. And I mean, it's something I actually turned out to be really proud of. And she really liked it too. Liked it enough that she thinks it may be worthwhile to try and at least submit it for publication. And we're not talking like, it's going to be like award winning or anything like that. I doubt it would even end up in a book or anything. I think she's just talking like, maybe like the school newspaper, maybe the local Milwaukee newspaper, something along those lines. But, still, it'd be cool to say that I'm, at least to some extent, a published author. How many people get to say that, right? So I'm sitting on the final draft that I have for a few weeks. And then once the new semester starts, she and I are going to meet again and look over it once more, just to see if maybe, stepping away from it for a while will have allowed us to view things differently once we take another look at it. But if you're curious about reading the story yourself, I actually set up a new page on the website specifically for this particular project. Mostly because the other, the other honors projects aren't really anything worthwhile to put up on the website. But at least, the short story is something I wrote and I'm pretty proud of. So, if you want to take a look, just head over to the roadtojapan.com/honors credit and you can read the whole story there. And that is the latest final draft that I have written thus far. And if the story gets updated, after we look at it again, then I will make the appropriate changes on the website version as well. I will say that if you do go to read it and you're kind of wondering what's up with the formatting, because all the paragraphs are very blocky, it seems that WordPress is not a fan of paragraph indentation, essentially just using the tab key, to indent your first sentence of the paragraph. I spent probably a good 2 hours trying to figure out ways around that, and either the settings wouldn't save or I couldn't get it to format correctly. So, I just kind of set it aside for the time being. It does take a little away from the format of the story, but it still gets, you'll still get the gist of what I'm trying to write in the story. So, if you do check it out, let me know. Write in email at theroadtojapan.com and let me know what you think. good, bad, terrible, whatever, let me know. I look forward to hearing opinions on it besides just that of my English teacher. So the other thing that's going to happen that has to do with my other honors project is for one of my economics courses, well, for both of them, I ended up writing or helping my instructor create a couple of activities that she will implement in her classes next semester. And she asked that if she could get in touch with me sometime after the next semester starts, and actually have me sit in on her class to present the project myself. Which, I mean, yeah, that sounds awesome. And what's more is one of my classes next semester is going to be speech. Elements of speech is what it's called. So I assume there's going to be a lot of, projects and activities where I have to talk in front of the class and stuff. So I'm going to, very early on, probably in the first week or two, mention to my instructor in that class that I'll be doing this thing for my economics professor and see if maybe there's some way I can work out maybe a little extra credit, just to keep that grade up in that class. I'm always looking to essentially increase my grade. So, I'll obviously report back when that happens, but it's something I'm really looking forward to. I mean, I spent a lot of time getting those lesson plans figured out, so it'll be really cool to actually present it to the class, field questions and things like that. But that's pretty much it for the honors credit side of things. I'm just really glad to be done with that, because that was, if it weren't for the honors projects, the last probably 3 weeks of my regular classes would have just been a complete breeze. I really literally would have had to do nothing but show up to class. Because I know I finished my math homework probably 2 weeks ahead of schedule, and it was just a matter of taking those tests. Our English class we stopped meeting for classes because essentially I think it was right before Thanksgiving, we were presented with the final draft of our essays, and she said at that point there wasn't really any point for us to meet in class because that's all we were going to work on for the rest of the semester. So then it just became, she would make herself available and we could meet with her, one-on-one to discuss anything having to do with our projects, which I took advantage of, but from what I understand, not a lot of my classmates did. So, that is what it is. I mean, everyone settles for the grade that they get. And which, speaking of settling for grades, one of the last things I want to talk about before I wrap up speaking about next semester is the fact that one of the other things that made my latter half of this semester really, really busy was that in addition to focusing on, getting my own work done, getting these honors projects taken care of, was the fact that I was also helping other students with some of their work. So in particular, I ended up getting approached by two guys in one of my economics classes. They're classmates of mine. And I'm not really sure, what necessarily their intentions were, but what it turned into was they wanted help with their work, essentially with like the paper writing side of things, because, while I'm not a masterful paper writer, typically I can write a first draft, and if I turn in that first draft, it usually earns me a B right out the gate. And these guys, weren't handing in B grade drafts, so that's where, they wanted my help with that. So there were many weekends that were spent in these like type of study group sessions. I'm not sure what you want to call them, but basically we would gather up and work on whatever needed to be addressed. So I'd usually get most, if not all, my work done during these sessions, and they would get like some of their work done. But, I was trying my best to encourage them, to strive for the best. Because for both of them, they kept telling me that all they wanted was to get like a C. And I would explain to them time after time. I'd say, you don't want to get a C. A C is not the goal you should be striving for. An A is the goal that you should be striving for. And you should never, ever settle for anything less than your best effort. Now, that's not to say that if you don't get an A, it's the end of the world. But for me, I always keep my mind set that I want to get an A, and if I end up with a B, then, I'm not going to beat myself up too much about it, because at least I really tried to get that A. But the thing is that, and this is something I would explain to anyone who I was speaking, to about this, is that all of us have the same potential. We all had the same potential to succeed. There's nothing, aside from like massive, physical or mental disabilities that, keep us, make us different from one another. Like I would just essentially say like your average high school graduate, college freshman or whatever, or sophomore, junior, senior, whatever, doesn't matter. And age is almost irrelevant as well, because there are people that go to my school that are in their 40s and 50s, and you're never too old to give college a shot. And as far as the potential goes, that 50-year-old student has just as much potential as that 20-year-old student, and vice versa. And I think a lot of it is just that, because these two guys are many years younger than me. One's fresh out of high school. The other's probably, I think, 23, 24, or something like that. And it's mostly just a matter of the fact that they don't necessarily have their priorities straight yet. And that's mostly simply because they have not, been really out in the real world yet. They both live at home with their families. One of them's he's lived on campus, away from home, for a while. But, one of the reasons he had to come back to living at home is because his grades dropped. And they dropped to the point where the college wouldn't let him back in until he brought him back up. So, that's kind of what I mean. It's like they obviously were more focused on socializing or partying or drinking or hooking up with girls or whatever. And I don't know, like, just because like I've spent, 10 plus years out in the real world, working full time, supporting myself and all that, it frustrates me to, try to convey to them the fact that, the world is not going to be very forgiving if you're not going to get your act together now. And I don't know, it's hard to say at this point whether I've really gotten through to them. But like our last weekend of the semester before we reached the end, I spent with one of the guys all weekend, working on his work. Most if not all my work was already done. So it was really just my free time getting burned up with this. But I spent like, I think I spent at least 8+ hours with him, both days. Because what he wanted to do was he wanted to do one of the quizzes for the class, and he wanted to write 2 papers, both of which had to have 3 sources and were 1,500 words each. And for those of you who don't know, 1,500 words averages about 5 or 6 pages, roughly. And font size isn't going to really make a difference or anything like that. So what I did is I wanted to set a list of goals that, if he met them, would ensure that he would come out with not only a passing grade, because I don't think he had a passing grade at the point that we started this, but to not only get a passing grade, but to get a good grade, at least a B, if not an A. That was Like, I crunched numbers, and I mean, the guy only had to get C's on these papers and C's all around, and he would end up with an A. So what I wanted him to do was to finish the 2 drafts. We did the quiz together, but to finish the 2 drafts by the end of the weekend so that he could submit those to me. I could revise them and then get them back to him like the next day. He would make the adjustments and any edits that he caught, submit them again to me, and then I would once again revise it, make edits and notes and stuff, hand them back to him. He applies those changes, and then hopefully at that point he would have something, really good to turn in. The only stipulation that I put on that was that I was not helping him with content. That was not the point of this. I was just helping him with formatting, making sure that he had good grammar going, good spelling, proper formatting of paragraphs, his citations, things like that. That's what I was helping him with. But like, as far as the meat of the paper, what he was writing about and all that was on him. I'm not going to do everything for him. And to make what's already becoming a long story short, he essentially didn't meet any of these deadlines for me. So, like, there were no papers that got turned in at the end of the weekend. And what really, really irritated me was the following Monday, which was essentially the day after he was supposed to turn these drafts in. He lets me know that he's going to start over and rewrite them, which I figure one of 2 things is going on with that. Either A, he's lying to me and just wanted to make an excuse to have more time to work on these, because I wanted drafts, by the end of the day on Monday, because these papers were due on that Thursday. So we didn't really have a lot of time to, do revisions and such to get them up to par. But it was still doable, but we just had to stick to a pretty strict regimen to get this done. So either he was wasting my time, I should say he was biding his time, basically procrastinating or just getting an extension to work on what he already has, or he essentially wasted my whole weekend by starting from scratch. Because then that would mean that whatever he did write over the weekend was completely useless. So I was pretty furious with him at that point. And I still gritted my teeth and I was like, okay, fine. If you want to start over, then start over. But I want both papers, done and finished and in my inbox by Tuesday night. Now, mind you, I'm not getting paid for this. There's not really any sort of real true benefit for me in doing this for him. I really just honestly wanted him to succeed. I mean, if I really had it in my power, I'd be doing this with all the students, every student out there. But obviously, I'm limited in what I can do. So at least I wanted to help this one student who has reached out for help. So I told him, I said, okay, fine. Two papers completely finished, 3,000 words, Tuesday night. And he agreed to that. So Tuesday night rolls around and I only get one of the papers done. And that was it was pretty much the point. Like I couldn't help him anymore. It was Tuesday night. The papers are going to be due in 2 days, and he only gave me one paper. So, this is essentially not meeting any of the goals. So, I basically just didn't look at it. I didn't help him anymore. And I really struggled with that because, it was just as frustrating to deny him help as it was to, receive these kind of half-assed papers and whatnot. And I ended up meeting with one of my instructors to work on my honors project. And I had a little conversation with them about this. And she essentially told me, what I kind of thought in the back of my head all along is that, especially because I'm looking to become a teacher someday, this is something that's going to happen, probably every semester. And the way she explained it is that, like a lot of professions out there, you can't take things personally. You have to kind of draw a line as far as where, how involved you get with something. And for me, that, that's where the line got drawn. And she explained it really well. And basically in summary, it was that you can't focus on the ones that don't want to succeed. Which, I mean, it sounds terrible, but like, what can you do if a student doesn't do the work or doesn't show up to class or only half-asses their work? The best you can do is just be available to them to say, I'm here if you need me. But if they don't utilize that and utilize it the way they need to in order to succeed, you can't own that. And once she explained it that way, I'd say it made me feel better, but I still kind of felt rotten with the fact that I didn't help him. But it made sense, and I essentially had to do that. So, I think the following weekend, at some point, he sent me a message actually saying he got an A- in the class. Now I don't know necessarily if that's true because I didn't see a transcript or anything. But I will leave it open to believe him, for the time being until I am proven otherwise. But he actually got into a conversation. It started off with him just wishing me, Merry Christmas last night because yesterday was Christmas. But then he mentioned that he wants to improve his GPA even further because I think he ended up with a 2.5 and he wants to bring it up to a 3.0. So, begrudgingly, because I initially just wanted to say no. This is you've wasted enough of my time. I really don't know if you're honestly, truly serious about this. Because, I mean, he does a lot of talking as far as I want to do this, I want to do that. But the actions will speak otherwise. And I respond way more to actions than words. Because anybody can say that they're going to do something. I could say I'm going to become the Pope, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to become the Pope, So I begrudgingly said I would help him again, but I laid down some very strict rules. And the first thing I mentioned is that he's not going to be going for a 3.0 if he's getting help from me. He's going to be going for a 4.0 because, as I explained to him, the potential is there. He just needs to tap into it. If you're listening out there and you don't think you can do it, then you're not going to do it, But if you think you can do it, then you will do it because you will do it by any means necessary. And it's like I tell him or any other student that, they sometimes look at me as if like I'm doing something special or I'm, drinking some special juice or whatever that makes me smarter or a harder worker. And it's none of that. It's just good old fashioned determination. That's all you need. And, they look at me as if, like I've achieved the impossible by accomplishing all A's and getting honors credit. And, if you had told me like 5 years ago that I was going to be in college getting all A's and honors credit and all this stuff, I had told you were crazy because I did not believe in myself in that manner. And it wasn't until I started doing things that made me realize that I could accomplish things if I just put my mind to it. And those things started happening, So if you're listening out there and maybe your GPA isn't as good as you or anyone else wants it to be, for starters, you can't necessarily go by other people's expectations until they are matched with your own. Now, that's not to say that if they are telling you to go for an A and you're going to settle for a C, you know, if you're going to settle for a C, then you're going to get a C. That's just going to be the way it goes. But that's not to say that, I mean, I understand that obviously you can't just say I'm going to get an A and it'll just magically happen. You got to put the work in. You got to figure out strategies and implement them in order to achieve that A. But it's doable. That's the thing. It is doable. It's totally doable by anyone out there. It's just a matter of applying yourself. We all have that potential. It's just a matter of tapping into it. So, when I'm talking with this fellow student, I'm basically laying down the law saying that if I'm especially helping him with papers next semester, he's going to, it's a pretty simple rule set. He's going to turn in things. He's going to turn in what I ask for when I ask for it. And if he misses a deadline, then I'm not going to help him. And he agreed to that. So, we'll have to wait and see on it. But, that's kind of where it stands right now. But I mean, I guess moving into the last thing I'm going to talk about here, next semester, because I mentioned that that after this semester was done, I was going to take a winterim class, and I did sign up for one. I was registered and everything, but I have since dropped it. And the main reason for that is that once I got the syllabus for the class, I looked at it, and just like with the accelerated courses that I tried out earlier this year, there just seemed to be way more opportunities to fail than succeed. And, I don't agree with it any more now than I did back then. On top of that, the syllabus actually got revised after I ordered my book, because the syllabus had the book listed that we needed to get. So I rented a copy of that from Amazon. And, as it was basically on its way here, the syllabus got revised and it was a totally different book. And so, if this was a full semester class, it wouldn't have been that big of a deal. I would have just returned the book that I ordered and just ordered another one. And I would have missed like a few days reading. No big deal. But because this class works on a weekly basis, because it's only 3 weeks, this class was only going to be 3 weeks long. And every week on the Wednesday, there was going to be a quiz. And then 2 weeks out of that class, there were going to be papers due that had to have terms from the book and so forth. So for me to return a book, get another one, would have taken me probably close to a whole week, and that would have meant I would have missed one of the quizzes or had to do some really good guesswork or try to find the information online somehow, in which then what's the point of having a book in the first place? But essentially all that just kind of added up to me thinking okay, I really shouldn't take this class. So I dropped it. I dropped the class, and I did still sign up for it again, but I added it to my classes next semester. So that actually means that on top of the 4 classes that I was already taking, I'm going to take a 5th one now. Though there is kind of a silver lining in here. The class that I am now signed up for is actually with one of my former instructors that I took last year. So that'll actually be really cool, because again, like with my economics professor, I am aware of how she structures her class. So at least I can kind of hit the ground running when it comes to that class and know what to essentially expect from it. So that's actually, I'm considering that a perk. It'll suck that it's still, an online class, because I really did enjoy taking all my classes in a classroom this last semester. But I think with the next episode, I'm going to go over the pros and cons between taking classes in a classroom versus online. Because there are definitely pros and cons in both camps. So let's see, where do I want to end? So the classes, the full list of classes I'm taking next semester is a government political science type class. which actually fits under my sociology requirements. And then the diversity class is the one that I was going to take over the winter but it's now added to my spring semester. Then I'm taking art, and I've already mentioned that I'm taking a speech class. And then I'm taking natural science as well. The thing is with natural science, there's also a 1-credit class that's the lab portion of natural science. So I don't know what that necessarily means, but that essentially could mean that I'm taking 6 classes next semester or 5.5, depending on how you want to look at it. But one thing I know I am doing for sure is I am not buying books until I know I need them, because I went and sold my books back to our campus bookstore. And what really ended up pissing me off was the fact that the book that I paid the most money for, which was my algebra book, and I bought that I think I actually bought it used. I can't remember. But I think I spent somewhere in the range of like $200 for the book. Maybe a little less. But the thing is that I wanted to ensure that I could sell it back. So I did not use that online code, and instead bought the online code for an additional $100 on the website. So it kept my book code intact. And what really infuriated me is that when I went to sell it back, they noted that they were going to use a different edition next year. So the book was useless. They couldn't buy it back. And, in my frustration and just being so exhausted from the semester, I kind of just was like, fine, screw it, I don't care. And they had a box for donating books, and I just threw it in there. Thinking about it now, I'm kind of wishing I had held on to it and tried to maybe sell it on eBay. Because I'm sure, while my college wasn't using it, I'm sure some other college student would make use of it at their campus. And I mean, it has an online code, so it's not like a useless book. But they probably could have even used just the text by itself anyway. So I'm kind of regretting that. But, it's live and learn, But one thing I did learn from this whole experience, because I only got like $150 back for the other books that I sold. And so, I only recouped about $150 out of the $500 to $600 I spent on the books to begin with, which, it's essentially a waste of money, but that's basically the convenience fee that you pay when you buy from your campus bookstore. So, as a result, I'm going to take that knowledge from that experience going forward, and I'm just going to wait until I determine that the books are actually going to be required for any of my classes, because I didn't even really use those books for my economics course. I probably could have done the whole class without them, just basically using my notes and any information I find on the internet. Because I think I only cracked them open each maybe twice throughout the semester. I just really didn't have a need for them. So, essentially that was almost a waste of $200 and some odd. So going forward, I'm just going to wait until the semester starts until I know for absolutely certain that they need, a particular book. And it'll be nice, like if I get some teachers that are cool with me getting like a previous edition, because those end up being a hell of a lot cheaper, as long as they don't require the codes. But you can always buy the codes separately anyway, and for the most part, aside from certain subjects, I think the information usually remains relatively the same, between editions. As long as you're close to the edition that's required, it shouldn't really be that much different. So that's essentially gonna kind of wrap it up for the end of session 3 here. So there's really not much else to mention. Obviously, because I'm not taking the winter course, I'm going to make next semester, the spring semester, session 4. Because originally I was planning on maybe doing session 4 in 1 or 2 episodes where I just talk about the winter course, but because that's not happening, session 4 will just become the spring semester like normal. And hopefully I can stick with my plans to take any remaining courses I have during the summer. So that will likely be session 5. And I realize that they're going to be shortened classes as well. But here's the thing. They are literally the end of the road for me as far as my MATC requirements are concerned. So I think I'm just going to have to suck it up and deal with the shortened classes and just get, the best grade possible, because once I do that, then I will have fulfilled all my requirements and I will be able to graduate likely next winter. Right around this time, actually, right around Christmas time. So that's something I'll really be looking forward to. So actually during I guess that would be session 6, in which I'm hopefully at that point taking university classes, working towards the bachelor's degree. I'll also be mentioning my graduation ceremony from MATC. So that'll be really cool. But obviously that's a ways away, so I can't really start getting excited about that just yet. So yeah, once again, if you want to check out the honors project that I wrote, you can go to the roadtojapan.com/honors credit and check it out there. And while I haven't really done any YouTube content, I'm still wanting to do something with the video work. So I have some time off since I'm not taking the winter class. So I'm going to see if I can come up with some ideas, and we'll see what happens with that. But on any page at theroadtojapan.com, you will be able to see on the right-hand side a listing of all the videos that have been done so far. So if you want to check out previous episodes or some of the quick vids that I've done, you can pretty much do that at any page at theroadtojapan.com. And once again, if you want to write in, if you want to share your thoughts, or if you have questions, complaints, concerns, hate mail, whatever, you can write. Email at theroadtojapan.com. Or you can, if you can keep it short, under 140 characters, you can follow the account at The Road to Japan on Twitter and send me comments that way. Or you can follow the page on Facebook. I think it's just facebook.com/The Road to Japan. I might be wrong about that, but you can always go to theroadtojapan.com and you will find links on the right-hand side of any page that will direct you to the Twitter account or the Facebook page. And on that same right-hand side, close to the top, should be one of the first things you see. You can also subscribe to the show on iTunes or any pod-catching device of your choice. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So I once again thank you for listening to another semester of my rambling. I guess the silver lining on that was that, there wasn't really a lot of rambling going on because I didn't do that many episodes. But hopefully I'll be able to better manage my free time so that I can get more episodes out next semester. But I don't know. We'll have to see. I mean, I am taking another, 1.5 classes, so we'll have to see exactly how my free time, how much free time I have available. But I'm still going to try, obviously to crank out some episodes and keep you guys informed as to what's going on. And I am going to talk about, more Japan stuff, because, I mean, obviously this is still the road to Japan. And I realize that the focus has been more on the college side of things as of late. But, I have ideas coming through. And again, if you have any ideas and you want to share them with me, maybe something I can use on the show, email at theroadtojapan.com. Let me know. And we'll see how that looks. But for now, I'm going to wrap up session 3 and 2015 as a whole, because you're not going to hear from me again till sometime next year. So once again, thanks a lot for listening. Thanks for putting up with my rambling, and we will see you for session 4 in 2016. Until next time, minasan, ganbatte. 愛してたと嘆くにはあまりにも時は過ぎ
てしまった。まだ心のほころびを癒せぬまま風が吹いてる。一つの目で明日を見て、一つの目で昨日を見つめてる。君の愛のゆりかごでもう一度安らかに眠れたら、乾いた瞳で誰か泣いてくれ。 The real folk blues 本当の悲しみが知りたいだけ。泥の川に浸かった人生も悪くはない。一度きりで終わるなら。希望に満ちた絶望と罠が仕掛けられてるこのチャンス。何が良くて悪いのか、コインの表と裏みたいだ。どれだけ生きれば癒されるのだろう。